What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here, live for another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Extremely excited to be back on the air behind the microphone for this special edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I have some breaking news for the show that I am extremely excited to announce. An official company sponsor for the show that will be sponsoring yours truly, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, a sponsor that I've wanted for the show for quite some time, and a sponsor that I'm very happy to announce. As you see the logo change in the top right corner, this show is sponsored by none other than Labatt Blue. Labatt Blue, my favorite beer, is the sponsor of my show. It's surreal to even say that sentence within the start of the show, but the Canadian Pilsner, with the finest Canadian ingredients of smooth and easy drinking, balanced beer brewed with Cascade hops and a blend of malt, unlike any other beer I've ever had. And that is one of those things that I think if I were to ever move out of Buffalo, if I were to ever leave Buffalo, which more than likely I'm not. I don't see myself ever leaving here. But if I were to ever leave, Labatt Blue is at the top of the list of the things that I would miss as far as going to the bar. Hey, can I get a Labatt? So this show is sponsored by none other than Labatt Blue. I'm really excited to work with Labatt Blue. Really excited to continue to have them as a sponsor. I'll be wearing some fresh Labatt Blue beer gear throughout the rest of the days of this show. So partnership that I'm very excited to have, very honored to have, and very privileged to have. So as the show has continued to grow, it's awesome to create working relationships like that. And I'm going to continue to look for those business relationships and to start that off with Labatt Blue. I'm very honored to have Labatt Blue in my corner. So shout out to those guys, ladies and gentlemen. Labatt Blue, the official sponsor of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Go out, buy a Labatt Blue. They got seltzers now. They got all sorts of different drinks out there now, rather than just my favorite Labatt Blue regular on draft. Nothing beats it, in my opinion. But I'm very, very excited to announce that on the show to start things off. A very official sponsor that is my favorite beer. So with that being said, the sponsorship plug is out of the way. Not just any sponsorship plug, of course, Labatt Blue being the sponsor of this show. And I wanted to announce that on this show because this is a big one. This is an awesome day for Buffalo Bills fans. I want to remind you guys as well to subscribe to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Feel free to leave a review. I had a very special guest give me this shirt from the Special Olympics of New York. This is for the Buffalo Snow Bowl, which will take place, obviously, in the wintertime. It's the annual event. You guys see that there. As you see on the T-shirt here, representing that event as well. I had an awesome guest, Erica Rappel, on the show last week. I want to promote this event for the Special Olympics of New York. They're a fantastic organization. The Buffalo Sun Bowl event takes place June 27th, 2021 at Highmark Stadium. You can register your team at buffalosnowbowl.org. And for more information, you can contact Erica Rappel via email at erapel, that is RAEPPLE, at nyso.org. So there you see it on the ticker there, the Buffalo Sun Bowl event, June 27th, 2021 at Highmark Stadium. You can register your team at buffalosnowbowl.org. And for more information, you can contact Erica Rappel, former guest, last week's guest on the show, and she was great to have the privilege of discussing the future events that Special Olympics New York has in store for this area. I was very excited to do that, honored to do that, did all the great things that the Special Olympics does for this community. So check that out. But this video, as far as this particular video, the reason you guys clicked the video, obviously you want to tune into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, and I appreciate all the love and support that you guys give me. But I want to help promote other events. I want to help promote other people. Sponsorships come and go, but I think promoting others is a really good thing. And I want you guys to follow the Special Olympics New York on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I think that's really important as far as reaching out to other community organizations and helping them out as best as I can. I think that's extremely important. They sent me some socks. Got some socks. I got a koozie from the Special Olympics of New York, and I thought that was a really cool thing, as well as a card that I received that said, I want to read this to the audience because this was really awesome. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your podcast, being such an amazing advocate for our athletes. We hope to see you soon, Erica, plus your friends at Special Olympics New York. So really appreciate the items that were sent to me in the mail from Erica of Special Olympics New York, and I wanted to show those items on the show as far as just a first-class organization that is Special Olympics New York. So with that being said, the subject matter for today's show is unprecedented pressure. The 2021 Buffalo Bills. We got some awesome news today as Buffalo Bills fans. News that I think put a smile on my face. I don't know about you guys, but a smile was on my face, and that is the restructuring of the contract for Stefon Diggs. And I didn't see this coming. And I posted today on my Facebook, and it got a lot of traction. It was really cool to see people react to it. Just the simple fact that we have a wide receiver that, in my opinion, he is arguably the best wide receiver in the National Football League. As it stands right now, you could easily say that Stefon Diggs is that guy. But if Stefon Diggs is the best wide receiver in the National Football League, where does that put Brandon Beane? Did Brandon Beane literally just pull off something that I didn't expect? Yes, he did. He pulled off the unexpected. And the unexpected is convincing a player to not take less money for a year, not restructure his contract, but to convince the best player of his position to turn his salary, into a bonus, creating almost $8 million in salary cap space. This guy is something else. Brandon Beane, 100%. Did Brandon Beane pull off the unexpected? Yes, he did. And then some. I don't know any other GMs in the National Football League that can pull this off, that can convince a player that, hey, you do this for us now, it will pay off for us later, it'll pay off for you later. And, of course, that's a big move by Stefon Diggs to make that decision for his salary. Obviously, it's being converted into a bonus, as I mentioned. But Stefon Diggs came out with a statement that obviously caught my attention. And that statement was, quote, he wants to win 5 Super Bowls. And that made me say to myself, okay, every player wants to win multiple Super Bowls. But 5 Super Bowls? What ways can Stefon Diggs do that? What ways can he help us do that? Well, it made me say to myself, well, yeah, Stefon Diggs is elite. He's great. We know how great of a wide receiver he is. But where does Stefon Diggs rank as far as being like other players, or is he unlike any other elite player in the NFL? I think he asked us that question. He asked us to ask ourselves that question, and then he answered that question within the same week. He answered that question by saying, yeah, I am unlike any other elite player because I am willing to shift some money around for the sake of my team. Now, almost $8 million in salary cap space added to this Buffalo Bills salary cap. The Bills weren't exactly the quote-unquote free agent players that you would expect a team to be that's coming off of a 13-3 AFC East winning division, record, undefeated in the AFC East. Josh Allen's got all the mojo. He arguably could have been the National Football League MVP this year if it wasn't for a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers. I think Josh Allen easily could have been. You go to the AFC Championship game, so you have a lot of allure that's brought onto your team from last season in comparison to any season prior. And heading into this season, you have an allure around your team that is unlike anything that we have seen. So when I say, for the title of this video, unprecedented pressure, we've never been here before as a Bills franchise I shouldn't say we've never been here before, but we haven't been here specifically before in quite some time. 25 years to be exact. That is a generation and then some plus of not being here. So it's safe to say, and Bart, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys obviously you can agree to disagree. I welcome that on the show. Not one of those guys that throws my takes out there and then I expect everybody to agree with it. I'd be a pretty boring podcaster and a pretty lonely show host if I just thought everyone would agree with what I was saying. That's not the idea of a sports show, to get everyone to agree with you. It's to throw out your own take and to have the people that tune in, watch or listen kind of chew on it and see what they think and feed your ideas off of one another. But in my personal opinion, I think you have more football-minded eyes, more eyes in general, more football-minded folks in today's NFL as fans than you do or than you did back then. A lot of football fans are very well educated as football fans, whether you're the average fan or a diehard fan. There's a lot of content creators out there like myself that study football religiously, watch the tape, whether it's prospects, whether it's coaches, whether, schemes, all that stuff, X's and O's, that didn't exist back in the day because they didn't have the technology for us to consume the football product that we know as today's NFL. So that adds more pressure. The more eyeballs in general, the more pressure you have. And I think dating back to previous seasons under Sean McDermott, this is another point that I want to make in terms of the unprecedented pressure that is on the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott came in here somewhat a wide-eyed new head coach that was very eager for the opportunity, very motivated for the opportunity. He gets the opportunity to come in here and kind of tear out the rug, to just tear the rug completely out, put a new rug down, and kind of build the house all on his own, tear it all apart and rebuild, right? So he knew what foundation to lay down based on his success or seeing success under the tutelage of guys like Andy Reid and Ron Rivera, kind of following their path, kind of being cut from the same cloth as those coaches. Those are two really great influences to have. So I would argue that it's almost easier for Sean McDermott in a way, being that he had seen an organization be rebuilt in Philly and in Carolina, to know how to do it in year one, in year two, in year three. And now, as the Buffalo Bills head coach, with all of the moxie and all the allure and all the popularity that this team has as one of the more exciting teams in the National Football League, you did win the AFC East. You did go undefeated in the AFC East to win it. And I would argue that if you're talking about pressure, which coach is under more pressure, Sean McDermott or such and such, Sean McDermott, I would say, simply put, Sean McDermott is under the most pressure that he has ever been in his entire coaching career. The most pressure. And I say this due to the fact that the expectations for the Buffalo Bills are that simply they will be back in the AFC Championship game. Those are my expectations when I look at the AFC and I try to figure out, what teams are really the teams that could threaten Buffalo, what teams are really the teams that belong in the same sentence as Buffalo. They are very few and far between. There's the Kansas City Chiefs. There's the Buffalo Bills. There's the Baltimore Ravens. There is the Indianapolis Colts. Those are the four teams in the AFC, and I obviously threw Buffalo in there for obvious reasons. Those are the four best teams in the AFC, and Buffalo is one of those teams. Cleveland should be much better this year. Pittsburgh is still relevant, but obviously with Big Ben kind of winding down in his career, how good will they be? There's always one team in each conference that comes completely out of nowhere. Which team will that be in the AFC? Depending on, whether Aaron Rodgers gets moved to Denver, it could be the Denver Broncos. But I think that based on the expectations, that the teams of years past that wore these helmets could become the teams of today wearing these helmets. So that's what I'm saying. It's literally two forms of a fan base smashing heads, the past clashing with the present, and Bills fans are putting a lot of pressure on this upcoming season, and it's pressure that is well-deserved because the Bills surpassed any and all expectations last year as a team. I didn't think they'd go 13-3. I didn't think they would. I knew they'd win the division. I did call that. I should have bet on that too. Damn, I should have bet on that. But I knew they'd win the AFC East. I didn't think they'd go 13-3, and I sure as hell didn't think they'd go to the AFC title game. I'm talking before the season started. As the season wore on, I realized, yeah, they could go to the AFC title game. Yeah, they could play Kansas City. They could hang with Kansas City. That was like the date with destiny, as I said all the time on my show, that's the date with destiny. So I think that when you look at the pressure that they are under to not just get it right again, but to get it right and to do it better than they had done before, we have not been under this territory in quite some time. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that are just saying, yeah, this team's going to be really, really great. I'll tell you this, the Bills are going to be great. I have no problem in saying that, but each season is a new season. Each season is different. Each season has a new tale to be told. And what I mean by that is every team is different. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be better, right? The San Francisco 49ers are going to be better. Just throwing teams out there. There are teams that are going to be better. And two teams that I think will be better will be the Patriots and the Dolphins. I'm not saying that the Patriots and the Dolphins will be as good as the Buffalo Bills or better than the Buffalo Bills, but they're going to be better than what they were last year. Is that enough for them to get past Buffalo? I don't know. If the Patriots and the Dolphins had went into this season with virtually the same teams that they did last year, you know what my answer would be? It would be, hell no, it's not good enough. But the Patriots added a lot of talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and the Miami Dolphins have added a ton of talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So I think if you were to ask me which two teams are the tougher test between the Patriots and the Dolphins, I would say the Dolphins. I think New England has a lot of identity to figure out, whereas the Dolphins don't have as much of an identity to really figure out. They kind of know who they are, what they are, who the players are, what the future holds. Whereas New England, they're still kind of figuring it out. They drafted Mac Jones. It was a step forward for them, but Mac Jones actually has to deliver. That does have to happen. So I think that this season will bring unprecedented pressure, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying that this Bills team can't live up to it. I think Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. I said it last year. I'm saying it heading into this year. One of the 3 best quarterbacks, 5 best quarterbacks, however you want to look at it. I think in the AFC, he's definitely one of the 3 best quarterbacks. I go Mahomes, I go Allen. And just based on, pedigree, experience, whatever you want to call it, I'm not willing to say Big Ben is done, but I'm not willing to say that he's one of the top 3. As far as a top 3, it's actually very tough because I've never been high on Mayfield. I'm not that high on Lamar Jackson. So let's just say the 2 best are Mahomes and Allen, and I think that that's a fair assessment. But now we shift gears to what ways can the Buffalo Bills be better in 2021 than they were in 2020? And I talked about this in a short little video on my Instagram. I posted it on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, as well as my YouTube channel, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. The point of attack was the point of emphasis for this regime for McDermott, and Brandon Beane. They wanted to add as many athletes as they possibly could, freakish athletes, to this roster on the offensive line and the defensive line that they possibly could. They were able to do that. It's no secret. It's no shock. It's no coincidence, I should say. The Bills drafted a defensive end and a defensive end back to back. They couldn't pass on one Boogie Basham in the second round, just like they couldn't pass on the freakish athleticism of one Gregory Rousseau. You have everyone and their grandmother, as far as football analysts, that say that Gregory Rousseau has a lot of work to do. He's not quite there. He's not developed. He's not this. He's not that. Well, Buffalo doesn't need him to be an immediate impact player playing 80% of the snaps. They need him to be an impact player within 40, 50% of the snaps, maybe even 35, 30% of the snaps, depending on who they go with. They don't need Gregory Rousseau to be Bruce Smith. That's not what they're asking of him. They shouldn't be, at least. That's a tall task for anyone, except for Bruce Smith, of course, the GOAT. So, Boogie Basham comes in. Yeah, that's a great pick. Then you add these freakishly huge offensive linemen in Trent Brown, and you have a 6'8" guy, a 6'9" guy, Tommy Doyle. You see the size. You see a regime that says, hey, well, we're going to throw a new dimension. What is the newest? What is a new dimension? What is a new layer that we could add to this team? And it's adding as many athletes as we possibly could to this roster that would allow us to be more feared as a defense. This defense was not feared last year. They were not. You had each offense with a considerable talent at tight end being able to pick us apart, being able to do virtually whatever they wanted to do against us, quarterback to tight end, whether it was Travis Kelce, it was Mark Andrews, whether it was Tommy Doyle, or I even was it Jack Doyle, Tommy Doyle, the pick, Jack Doyle. I can't remember. I'm getting my names mixed up. Doyle, the tight end for the Colts. We saw problems, covering the tight end. So if you take the Super Bowl team, like if you were to think, what is the Super Bowl team? How can a Super Bowl team be created in Buffalo? You take the 2020 offense of the Buffalo Bills and you add it with the 2020 defense, or the 2019 defense of the Buffalo Bills, or anything resembling that, and the Bills have a Super Bowl caliber team. So that's a bold statement. And that's something that I think not many fans are really cheering for, or saying that the 2020 offense that we had last year was one of the best in recent memory. The 2019 defense 2 years ago was one of the best we've had in recent memory. If we can get even close to that 2019 defense and get even close to the 2020 offense that we had last year, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. This is a team that could potentially win the Super Bowl, if not this year, maybe next year. The question is, now that you have all this game tape on you based on how these defensive coaches have analyzed the tape on the Buffalo Bills and Brian Daboll's offense, will the Bills be able to do the same things offensively than what they did last year? The answer is no. Will they be successful? That's another question and another answer. But if you were to ask me, can the Bills do the exact same thing that they did last year to win the exact same amount of games that they did last year heading into this season? I'd say no, because if I were to say yes, that would be, I think, an insult to the coaches that'll be preparing against us, whether it's Brian Flores or Bill Belichick or some of these other coaches out there. Those are the coaches that are playing against us twice a year, including Robert Saleh, the New York Jets head coach. They're checking the tape, folks. They're looking at the tape. They're finding out the cadence. They're finding out the rigmarole of this Bills offense, what makes this offense what it is, what made this offense what it was last year, and they're going to try to minimize that. They have to. That's the big problem to those three teams in the division. They couldn't stop the Bills offense last year. That's more likely than not what they did to, I guess I should say, what they did to create their point of emphasis within their roster. Let's bring some players onto this team that can cover wide receivers, that can pressure Josh Allen, And you see that. You see that these last few years with Miami's draft, with the Jets drafts. And I think that you're going to see, better efforts from the Jets, from the Patriots, from the Dolphins. Will it matter? Will it be enough? That's the big question. But as I'm back on the show, I say to myself, McDermott does not have it easy. This is not the easiest job heading into this season for Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott had time his first year, time his second year, time his third year. Now the time is now for this Buffalo Bills team to show that they're more than just pretenders, that they are true championship contenders. Last year was not a fluke going to the AFC title game. This year is the year that they can and should be in the Super Bowl. And you look at last year's Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Bucs put out the blueprint on how to stop or combat, at the very least, the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, you're taking notes. You're studying what Tampa Bay did, what Todd Bowles did. Former New York Jets head coach Todd Bowles coached the game of his life in the Super Bowl as a defensive play caller for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Double cover Tyreek Hill. Force them to force feed the quarterback into making quick decisions. I think that made Mahomes look ordinary in the Super Bowl. I didn't really talk about the Super Bowl as much as I'd like to on this show, but that was really something. That was really something. I had Cody Butler on, who's a big-time Bucs fan, biggest Bucs fan that I know. I had Josh Rest on to recap it, but man, in hindsight, you look at that Super Bowl, that was something else. That Super Bowl was really something special by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And yes, Tom Brady. But I think that the point of attack was a big point of emphasis for this team, no doubt about it. Sean McDermott heading into this season is actually under the most pressure than he ever has been because he is expected to be right back into the thick of things of an AFC title game. At worst, an AFC title game. That's the expectation. At worst, we're going to be back in the AFC title game. A lot has to happen in order for that to happen. Guys have to stay healthy, and we obviously have to succeed on the field over a 17-week schedule. Folks, the hottest take of this show, point blank, with 27 minutes and 38 seconds left or into the show. I think it's completely ridiculous that the NFL expanded their season to 17 weeks. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I was a fan of the preseason being cut down from 4 weeks to 3 and just leaving the season at 16 games. Granted, more football is never a bad thing, especially for guys like me who have a podcast, who are looking for, interaction between fans. But 17 weeks in a season, the Bills' bye week is week 7. That means they got, X amount of double-digit amount of weeks for more football. I don't like that. I have a feeling that this is not going to be a good thing for the league, for the players, for any of the teams. I don't like it. I just don't. I'm trying to change my mind on it, but I just don't like it. I feel like it was an ill-advised, greedy decision by the powers that be, whether it be Roger Goodell or the 32 owners in the National Football League. I feel like that was just not necessary in the slightest. But here we are. It is what it is. Screw it. More football coming this fall to a TV screen or to a bar near you. And as I said, I know what I'll be drinking on football Sundays. The show sponsor, Labatt Blue. That's how you come full circle on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm Ryan Thomas. For more episodes of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, you can check it out on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. A lot to discuss tonight. As I wrap up this show, we begin another in the world of combat sports. Stay tuned for more on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. Last and certainly not least, go Bills.